So let's get started making this wreath. Again, as you can see, it was very simple. I was going for a project that wouldn't take that long, that would give you a break from loom knitting, and something that would kind of honestly be cute to kind of have around the house. So this is what we used for it. We needed a piece of felt. This is actually called Candy Pink. I believe I got this at Walmart in the past. I don't remember exactly the size of this, but to give you a reference, it is bigger than my mini cutting board, which goes up to like 8 inches. So it's probably, I think, a 10 by something, I think is what I got it. It didn't tell me the size on it again. So we have a felt, and as you just saw, I have a mini little cutting board. This is used for cutting fabric, so I tested it out on a piece of the felt, and it seemed to work on that too. That's why I have this little cutting board. You need a wreath ring, and of course the ribbon that you saw, this came from my cousin. I just liked that it felt that it had very Easter kind of colors. And as you saw, the little thing I had the picture in is actually this. It is a pocket gift tag. Supposedly you can hang it over a basket and put like a little candy in it, but I thought it was a cuter idea to do with a picture. And then the other thing you're going to need is some Velcro strips in case you want to change out the picture. This will allow you to do so versus the picture permanently being in there. If you don't feel like you're going to want to change the picture out, then you can easily use craft glue, which we'll be using as well, to permanently lay this onto the felt that you saw it on. But I thought with the Velcro, we can cut off this part, and the Velcro would allow me to carefully pull it off if I wanted to change out the picture. Maybe put my cat picture in there instead. So that's the supplies we need, I believe. Anything else, of course, scissors maybe, or anything like that, could be needed as well. But we're going to start, again, this is very simple. And we're going to use the craft glue to help hold down the ribbon as well. But the first thing I kind of want to do is I want to determine how big the piece of felt needs to be, because the felt, well, as you can see before, was kind of behind the wreath. So I had this felt piece and I was trying to figure out how big it had to be, and I realized when I put my cutting board, let me bring this up a little bit so you can see more of the cutting board, and what I realized is that the piece of fabric of the felt, when I put the wreath ring on it, because again we're going to glue it onto the ribbon on the back, so I want to make sure I have enough space, and I realized that if I put this over here to here, I want at least 6 or a little more. It's okay to go a little over because you can always trim it down when you're finally seeing, and you can always cut the pieces that don't stick down. But we're going for a square even though we're covering a circle. So the first thing I wanted to do was cut this, and I realized I needed to kind of mark off a little bit. So what I'm going to do, if I can find what I was looking for a minute ago, is I'm just going to do a little snip with my scissors first so that I can say, okay, I want to still keep it this length. If I can get to do what I want to. A little snip there just so I know that I want as long as that. And the reality is I'm going to aim for it to be as wide as this too, because again, it might be a little tricky to see. The wreath ring is actually almost this part that I want to be going down is about the width of this. So this, when I found this, because I forgot I had it, I was like, oh, this is perfect for me to get a gauge of what the fabric has to be. So basically, if I first make it the size of this board, then I'll be all set. So I knew that I wanted to at least go here, so now I can take this cutting board, place it underneath, and find where my little snip is, and I can kind of come over a little bit, take my tool, which I almost forgot I had again. And again, if it's a little under, it'll be okay because I can move this over a little here just to give myself wiggle room, and then you push it down, roll it back and forth, and it should make a straighter line than if you're cutting with scissors. Okay, so we got a little straighter line. So I'm just going to go and move this down and work my way to the end. So that's all I'm going to do is I'm going to work, keeping an eye on where my cutting board is underneath, and just kind of work, making sure I'm not cutting onto my table. Okay, bring it down. So if anyone has worked with fabric, you probably, I don't even know if it's just called a cutting tool or what. I got this years ago when I thought I was going to do more with fabric. And that part's done. Now we come back up here and we realize that we want it about as wide as this. So I'm going to turn it this time. And I realized kind of where it falls off. So just to give myself a little buffer, I'm going to come over a little bit. Because again, I can trim this down later. And then we're just going to, keeping in mind that the cutting board is now this way, gently bring it down, following the line I kind of made before. It doesn't have to be totally perfect. Again, you can always finagle stuff at the end. But I wanted to do something a little different. I was kind of getting where I just needed a little breather from some of the projects I've been trying to illuminate for you guys, just have not been cooperating. So I was like, oh, let me do something a little different and something that's just very kind of a simple project for those that want to kind of take a breather as well. So again, we got our fabric roughly cut. Again, we'll be cutting it again. And now we have our rough idea of what we'll be able to piece on. If you actually look, you can see that it's going to glue on to the parts back here. Now we have to do the next part. We're going to wrap the wreath in the ribbon. Now some people might try to bulk up this a little bit, but I was like, I just really want to keep it kind of flat because I don't know why. It was just, I wanted to keep this simple, and I was like, you know what, I haven't really just fully wrapped a wreath with just ribbon without having like there being something loomed underneath it. I'm like, you know what, let's mix it up. So again, I think my cousin got me this. It's 9 feet, and it was almost not quite enough. So this is an 8-inch wreath ring, and so I would say if you were going to do just as simple with the ribbon, you might want to shoot for maybe 10 feet just to make sure you have enough. If you try to bulk up the wreath ring first, you may need a little extra to compensate. But because I'm not bulking it up and I'm just doing it flat, it won't make it be an issue. So what I also did is I was trying to figure out which side I wanted to start on. I just kind of knew that this, because if you look at the wreath ring, it's kind of raised up. I want this part that's a little flatter to be the top, and the part that curves back to be what's going to be glued to our piece of felt over here. So I'm going to just simply wrap it. Usually I just pick a spot, since that's going to be the behind. I'm going to kind of wrap it. Okay, this is really not cooperating. Okay. Oh my lord. See, this is the kind of time I've been having with crafts lately. Alright, so we got that. Go through there. Come back around. And this is where you're going to want to pay attention to where you're wrapping it. If you only have 9 feet, I started realizing that if I see the blue, and that's what's kind of good if you use a striped yarn, you can kind of gauge, well, if the blue is where I want it to kind of be the point, I can come around and use that blue line up here as kind of my guiding around. Now I may wrap this and realize I didn't wrap it right and need to wrap it again to modify it. That's okay. That's what's good about this, is you can just kind of work it until you're ready to be done. So I'm just working it around, kind of using the blue as a guide, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, this, and I don't remember, let me see if I can find, this is actually what the ribbon was. It's 7/8 inch by 9 feet. If anyone's looking for the width of it, I almost just realized I forgot to say. It doesn't tell me any particular color it is that I can see, but this is what it came in on. And you're just trying to hold that one piece in place. So that's all I'm going to do, is I'm going to kind of work around the wreath ring. Alright, so this is fighting me a little bit. I'm going to go off camera really quick and just keep working until I get back to my starting point. Okay, I'm back to the beginning, and I'm just trying to make sure it kind of lines up what it is, and I've got a little bit extra. Again, that could change up on what you do, but again, we want to flip it over because we will have our first beginning backside here. So you just want to kind of end up gluing it down with a little bit of craft glue. This, again, I got at Walmart. I think they even sell littler versions of it at Dollar Tree. And this wreath ring, in case I didn't mention, was actually gotten at the Dollar Tree years ago. It was like a 2-pack, I believe. And again, it's 8 inches, but I'm sure you can find it at other craft shows. But with your craft glue, just go ahead and kind of put a little bit of glue where you want the last part of the ribbon to be. And what I like about it, then just make sure you don't have it too much, and then snip your extra. I think I need to get sharper scissors. Okay, so just snip your extra. And this craft glue does dry fairly fast, and then just make sure it doesn't, if it looks like it's still got a little ledge, that just means I need to trim it a little bit more so that you don't see it on the other side. And then just lay your glue down. And you're going to want to give this time to dry. I'm going to just put a little bit of craft glue over here just to kind of seal. Let me see. A little bit of this. I'm just sealing it in a little more using the old, just to make sure that nothing is like fraying. Okay, so that is step one, and we're going to let this dry. And this glue does dry clear, so keep that in mind too, because it does dry clear, and so that's what I kind of like about it. They have it this way, which is an upside down stick, or they have a different kind of bottle as well. So while we're waiting for this to dry, because again we want the ribbon to dry to the other ribbon, we can start talking about the other parts. So once that's dry, I'm going to set it over here. And again, I got my felt that I'm going to still need to modify once that dries. But again, this is a gift tag. I'm going to show you one that was in the package. And so I wanted to use this to put a picture in. What I did notice, it can be used for candy, but what I did notice at first, like on this one, it's actually pretty tight up at the top. So I kind of had to maneuver it a little bit wider just to make it easier to put a picture in. And I printed off this older picture of my kid, and the only problem was this picture was a little smaller. So I'm going to show you this while we're waiting for the glue dry. And when this kind of tag I got from Walmart on clearance, I'm sure you can find one similar, or you might be able to make one yourself. But the picture just slides in the back, and again you can adjust it. I just thought it'd be really cute to put a little baby picture in there of like baby's first Easter or something, or even put a pet's picture in there, could be cute. But again, you can adjust what goes in there, and then again it's going to be on the pink, which I think will be a nice compliment once we get the glue to dry there. So when we come back, I'll have that dry. I'll be gluing this on there and gluing and using our Velcro, and we'll be almost done. Again, very quick project for Easter. While I'm waiting for the glue to dry over here, I thought I can still get working on the template of how big I need the circle to be that's going to get glued to the back. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect circle or not, but we want to glue this to the back of it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of trim it, and I'm hoping this will work easier on here, where we're just going to use this as a guide, line it up as best we can. Let's get up a little higher so you can see. Okay, so we don't have it lined up because I know kind of where I need it to lie, and then I can just kind of hopefully use this to kind of cut away. Okay, am I making a line? Okay, so that one's gone. So I'm just going to kind of work on this, getting it pared down to where I need it to be, because it doesn't have to be perfect. Just trying to turn you. I just had a quick idea. I'm like, why don't I just use a marker to kind of go through and mark where I want to cut? Don't you love when those ideas come? I'm sure somebody thought of it in the comments, like, why don't you just try to find a way to mark it? Yeah, it's one of those craft days, I tell you. So I'm using this to kind of help me roughly mark where I need to cut to get it down a little more. So now I can go off camera and I can cut the markings I had off of it. Okay, once it's dry, it's not quite fully dry. I let it sit for a good 30 minutes or so, but it typically does dry faster. It all depends, I think, on what you're gluing it with. But since it's kind of staying in place, I figured now's the time to glue it onto this so that I can actually let it set longer. I would say with this part, I would almost let it set a good 3-4 hours just to really make sure it's dry and solidified to it. And then you can move on to adding in the other cute little stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down some glue, and I'm just going to cover it like that and let it be. It should not stick to this table because it should not be going all the way through the felt. But if you're concerned about that, you could lay down like some parchment paper or wax paper or something if you're worried that it's going to go all the way through. But I don't feel like it's going to. But let me go grab some just in case I'm wrong. Okay, just in case I was wrong, because it is, you know, a little unsure, we're going to lay the parchment paper down this way. If it does stick, it should stick only to this, and we can kind of cut it away if we have to. But what we're going to do is we're going to lay down some glue. As you can see, you can't really see, as long as you line it up where you can't see any of the pink when you're looking straight down on it like we are. Bring my light back. Okay, so if you don't see any of the pink felt, then you can go ahead and lay out some glue along the edge of the pink felt underneath, and you know that you don't want to come in further than like about 1 inch. So if you have to, kind of look at your thumb. So I want to make sure the glue, if I'm looking at it here, it stays within this realm going around or less, so that way I don't have the chance of it being seen. Although it dries clear, you don't want to see clumpiness. So we're going to use our same glue we did before, and we're just going to go around. There's another way you can do it too if you don't want to do it that way. Just tip this over, put the glue on this, and then flip it over onto that. So whichever way is more comfortable for you, I would go for it. Since this is the back, I'm actually thinking about doing it onto the wreath ring and then flipping it over. Keeping it kind of within the perimeter that I want it to be in. This glue is getting down, so that's why I had to squeeze this one so hard. I should have grabbed my other one. But you definitely want to make sure you have enough in that perimeter. Okay. And slide it around a little bit if you need to. Okay. Should be good. A little spot here because it doesn't have any. Alright. Now I'm going to carefully turn this over. Line it up to where I want it to be. Make sure this part is smooth. Press it down a little bit. Now this is where you're going to want something heavy on it. So of course what I was going to put on it is not near me. Okay, I'm going to use what I can find. This is just a stack of canvases, something to just keep it laying on there. If you had like a book or something, I'd go ahead and lay that on there too and just let it set for a while. The weight of something on top will help it adhere to the felt a little more. But as you can see, I think we got lined up pretty good. If you were to go around it, you can see whether you're going to be, if it's not on it, but I think we lined it up pretty good. And yeah, now we just need to let it set, let it dry. So I'm going to put a couple other things on it and let it set for probably a couple hours or more before I move on to this. So if you have a picture you want to put in there, go ahead and find it, trim it to put in here. Again, these were from Walmart. They were on clearance like last year. I think they have something similar probably in stock this year. Or again, if you want to make something like this, you can also, of course when I'm looking for something, I can't find it. You can also find these clear like ID holders, and you could adjust them as well. We can find one that looks a little better here. Let me show you it up close. Alright, so I've gotten these clear ID holders before from Walmart, and you could potentially very carefully cut around and get rid of this thing, or like the ridges, and just use the part that you could put it in, as long as you don't accidentally break the seal. But you can find something similar at a craft store, or even 2 pieces of plastic that you have that you might be able to glue together and make the design that you want. But I'm sure someplace has something similar to these, but I just thought they were really cute last year. I was actually curious of the fact that they were $1.24 last year and I got them on clearance. My thought is, wonder how much they actually go for now. But that's why it's always important if you're a crafter to kind of check the clearance, like after the holidays. You may find things you can use for future projects. I've got other things that I found on clearance that are Christmas related and stuff like that that you may see in future videos. But again, if you kind of like the idea of where this project going, it's important that you hit that bell icon and hit all notifications to be notified of the next video, and give this video like a thumbs up if you're going to kind of tackle something similar. And let me know down in the comments like what kind of ribbon would you do? Would you do stripes, solid? Would you do something with more of a character kind of to it? And what would you do to make it more personalized for you? So again, I'm going to let this dry, and then when we come back, we'll do the next part of attaching this and utilizing our Velcro strips. These are older ones, again, clearance is my friend. These are ones that are like self-gripping hook and loop fasteners. On the back it just says cut to desired shape and remove portion of the backing because they're supposed to stick. But because these are older, they're not going to stick as well, and I'm going to need my craft glue again. So you might be able to find something like this that are newer, that the sticking is still there, I guess. Alright, so let's just wait for this to dry and move on to the next. Okay, so I ended up taking the heavy stuff off it. As you can see, it is pretty sturdy. It's been on here for a few hours. And what I did is I had the weight stuff on it one way, and then when I felt that it probably had set enough, I took the weighted stuff off and turned it over so the air could actually hit the back side a little bit too. And so because of that, I don't need this paper anymore. I never it never went through here, so it's good to have as a backup. So now we're looking at the front, and at this point you're going to decide if there's a certain spot you want to be the top or not. I'm not too particular. And now we're going to actually attach this thing. Now, as you can already see, I put a picture in here of my child, an older one, and if I had more time or whatever, I would have tried to figure out exactly what size. I just printed this on regular paper. It's not an actual photo paper, so I would adjust it to fit better in there. And again, like I said, with the back, I kind of stretched it out to be able to put, because again, it was sewed up to here, I just kind of pulled the sewing part down just to make it easier to put the picture in. And this is where you have to decide if the picture you're putting in there is one you want to permanently keep in there, because if it is, then just glue this whole thing down with our craft glue and you're done. If you're worried that you may want to change it out, that's again where we're going to play around with our fastener thing. This is the fuzzy side and this is the gripper side. So we're going to use these to at least make it easier to take this off if we need to. So if this is lying down and this is on there, we can kind of try to maneuver it off if we can. I'm not saying it'll be perfect, but it will at least be an option if you gently pull it off to work. And since I don't know if I want to keep this one in here, or if I eventually maybe want to be funny and put my cat in here like I mentioned, I want to actually make it so that I can remove it. What I also want to do is I want to keep this ribbon because I thought it was cute, to use as the thing to hang this up on the wall. So I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to carefully just cut this ribbon off so I can have it for later. Okay, it's not perfect for the cutting off, but again, if you've got better scissors than I seem to be having right now, you could cut that off a little better, or you could just fold it down if you had wanted a little bit. But since it's not quite cooperating, I'm not too worried about that showing up. Get this off here. A little fuzzies now. I'm not too worried about that little bit of orange showing through because you almost can't see it. I might worry about cutting it off more later. But again, now what we want to do is you got to decide what part of the Velcro. I made one of them longer than the other when I cut the sample off, so that way I'd have something to kind of hold my hand on as I rip the other part off, if that makes sense. So this is where you'll decide, do you want the fuzzy part on the pink, or do you want the fuzzy part on this? I'm actually going to put the gripper on this side, and because I'm going to put it underneath that, I'm going to glue that there, let that dry, and then decide where this needs to be on the thing to make sure it's in the right spot so that they're going to grip underneath. So I have to glue these two pieces now and let them dry. It's a matter of how far down. You could choose to have it way down on the thing, way down the wreath. You could choose to go up higher. You can choose to try to center in the middle. You could even put it off to the side if you wanted, and then put something else over here. Like say you wanted to put the year that this was for, you might be able to find small wooden letters, paint them, and glue them and put 2023, 24, whatever year you want to use, if you want to do it as like a baby's first Easter or something like that. So again, it's up to you where you want to place it. I'm going to actually try to do in the middle, but because I need to put a little bit of glue, because these are older ones, newer ones that have the sticky back, like if you see, this one still kind of has a backing to it that I have to take off, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be, oh, it actually is more sticky than I thought. This is old. This is actually stickier, so I don't even have to use glue on this one. I thought it would actually be dried out like this one, but it's not. So this is actually sticky enough that I can kind of decide where to place it. So I'm thinking if I put it there, that will be roughly in the middle, and that should be good. So I'm going to push this down so that I know where I want it to be, and now I'm just going to put a little glue on this one so that it lines up with the one that's on here, enough that it'll stick. So if I put it here, right, I'm just kind of eyeing it up, and I turn it over, it should be where I want it. So again, then when I want to take it off, I just hold down the fuzzy one and gently pull it up. So that's already good. I'm surprised I didn't need glue for that. So we just put a little touch of glue on this one, okay, so that it actually adheres to the felt. You shouldn't need too much. Okay, and again, I want it to be pretty much right underneath the little circle thing. Okay. I tell you, this glue is my friend for a lot of different projects. And then this way, once this dries, the string there, this will hook onto there. and it's pretty lined up. Might be a little off center, but I'm actually happy with it. I still think it's cute. Again, you could play around with it and make sure it's where it needs to be. Now, because I just glued this one on, and again, I held down this one and pulled this one off. I do need to let this dry, but what I also need to let dry is I want to put this ribbon, reuse it, to be able to hold this up. And with this actually being on here, I can visually see where I'm going to need to put this, excuse me, to be here. I'm going to be able to line it up to that and say, oh, I just got my watch connected to it. This is a magnetic closure watch for a Fitbit tracker, and because this wreath ring is metal, it wants to attract to it. So just so I don't mess up my own project, I'm going to take the watch off. It didn't do that earlier, but alright, so we'll take the watch off just so it doesn't catch. This again is drying. This is already on there. These are our ribbon, and then you want to decide with the ribbon how much of it do you want to see behind it. I kind of don't mind it being seen a little bit. I kind of like the striped and then the polka dot. If I didn't want it, I would just slowly work it down so that it would be further down, and then I would just have less of it shown. But I kind of like the idea of the polka dot poking through, and I have it lined up to where that one is, so I'm going to flip it over because this way I know where I need to be, at least to the best of my ability. And if you want, you can recheck real quick by holding it and checking it and going, okay, that should work, because once you glue it down you won't be able to get it off, so that should work right there. Come back over here, a trusty glue. We're going to glue a little bit on the felt, just enough to tack it on there, a little bit on that top, and then crisscross this over onto it, give it a little push, and I like to put a little extra glue kind of around it. Okay, I'm using just a little piece of paper, just kind of smooth it out a little bit. Now you may add more or less depending on how this dries, but again, you can easily check. There's enough glue on there to let you see if it's lined up in the spot you want, which it seems to be. So again, a lot of it now is just letting this dry, adding a little more if you think you need it. If you feel like it's not gonna adhere properly, like I want to add just a little more. Okay, it should work. Okay. Alright, so now we just got to let the two things dry, and we can put this all together in the end. One thing I did, just a quick to pop on here when I'm waiting for it to dry, is I decided, since you could see where the glue was, even though it dries clear, I thought it would be kind of a good idea to lay a piece of the pink felt over where I had the glue going, and then I just have my glue stick sitting on top of it just till it actually glues completely to the felt, so it gives it some weight to make sure it attaches well enough. And I'm just going to leave it be, and then when we come back,
okay,
we'll be able to put this all together.
And I think it came out really cute. Again, you can adjust where you want to put the duck or chick, whatever you want to call it, in case you want to add things to the side. But I thought this was a great, easy, fun project that could be a quick project you could do before Easter. I hope you like it, and have a great day, everyone.